name is Bessie Miyeko Konishi. I am a native of the San Luis Valley. I was born in Lara, Colorado, on the Capulene Road in 1932, where my family lived. And I will now read for you my presentation on the history of Japanese in the San Luis Valley, so that the story of my people is never lost or forgotten. Like European contemporaries, Japanese left Japan mainly for economic reasons, but unlike the European contemporaries, there was a Naturalization Act of 1790 limiting naturalization to those who were, quote, free white persons of good character, unquote. Excluded were Native Americans, indentured servants, slaves, free blacks, and Asians, and that act was not nullified until 1952. In California, the alien land law prevented Japanese from purchasing land, and so the Japanese were looking for other places to go. Meanwhile, in Colorado, the San Luis Valley had become a place of intense interest to land companies, with land selling at $25 to $40 per acre. One of the most active was Costilla Estate Company, formed in 1908 with 548,780 acres. The east side was the summit of the Sangre de Cristo Range, and the west side was the Rio Grande River. The Colorado-New Mexico state line passed east and west through the center of the tract. By 1914, Charles Gibson gained a major portion of these holdings. He had offices in Alamosa and San Ignacio. He knew they were good agricultural land and sent 2 men to California to urge Japanese farmers to come to the San Luis Valley in 1924. The timing was right. Japanese farmers in California were becoming more successful, and prejudice against them was building. They sent 2 farmers to the San Luis Valley to check it out. As a result, in February of 1925, my father, Eiichi Yoshida, was the first to bring his family by train from California to Alamosa. He said they stayed a few nights in Mr. Gibson's building, which had rooms for rent. The Gibson building is now Porter Realty in Alamosa. My father had come to Lodi, California in 1909 from Hiroshima, Japan, to join his father and older brother. My mother, Isayo Kiyonaga, was a picture bride. Picture brides were allowed from 1909 to 1920. She was only 18 years old, but she agreed to the arrangement. She left by ship from Japan on December 22, 1917. She arrived in San Francisco, California on January 15, 1918, with my father's name on her luggage and a picture so she could recognize him. He was a very kind man and was very good to her and all 12 of their children. Other Japanese families followed, and in 1930, census showed 233 Japanese in 5 counties in the San Luis Valley. They could not buy land, so were sharecroppers, sharing their profits with the landowners. Since they were farmers already, they became very successful quickly. They raised cabbage, cauliflower, lettuce, broccoli, which were not familiar to local farmers. By 1927, over 1,500 acres of vegetables were grown, and they formed a corporation, the San Luis Valley Vegetable Packers Incorporated, which had 2 packing sheds next to the railroad lines. They were Buddhists of the Jodo Shinshu sect, with the closest Buddhist temple in Denver, and so they built a modest Buddhist temple in Lahara, which was dedicated on February 6, 1937. A Japanese school was held there on Saturdays. It became the gathering place for special celebrations like New Year's Day and the celebrating of Buddha's birthday in April. When the Buddhist temple was built, they could not afford hymnals, so the songs written in Japanese were on large white sheets of cloth tacked to a wooden frame. As the songs were sung, sheets were flipped just like a page in the hymnal. I have several of those sheets. The building has since been sold, and the new owner has turned the Buddhist church into a triplex. During World War II, President F.D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which gave the United States government the right to remove and detain a group of people, specifically Japanese, with at least 1/8 Japanese blood. All the Japanese were ordered to leave the West Coast, clear up into Alaska. The action was the most unprecedented single national action against a large group of people in American history. Mass evacuation was supervised by the War Relocation Authority. On August 8, 1942, over 119,000 Japanese Americans were transferred from the West Coast to hastily built 10 camps in California, Arizona, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, and Arkansas. One was Camp Amachi in Grenada, Colorado. They were only allowed to take what they could carry. The camps were surrounded with barbed wire fences and armed soldiers with their guns pointed in, not out to protect the ones in the camp, but pointed in. This happened while Japanese Americans were serving in the United States Army. Because of Executive Order 9066, the population of Japanese increased in the San Luis Valley. Instead of going into the camps, many moved to Colorado because then Governor Ralph Carr said they were welcome to come to Colorado. Carr grew up in Antonio, Colorado, and he said, I quote, "It violated the Constitution to imprison American citizens because they happen to be Japanese. The Constitution states, and I quote, we, the people of the United States, not we, the people who are descendants of the English or the French or the Scandinavians." Growing up, my mother only spoke Japanese, so we all did at home. We were given Japanese names at birth, but given English names when we started school. So my Japanese name is Miyeko, Miyeko. My father spoke English well enough and some Spanish because our workers on the farm were Hispanic, but he figured out the paychecks on his Japanese abacus. Prejudice. I felt it in school, in the stores, in Alamosa. It was especially bad during World War II. We were called Japs as we walked down the street. Any guns and cameras had to be turned into the police. The Buddhist symbol is the reverse of the swastika, so they were scratched out or covered in pictures so it would not be mistaken for the swastika. Grocery stores in Alamosa did not want us to come in, but there was a small grocery store on 8th Street in Alamosa owned by a Lebanese couple. They told us it was not our fault we were at war with Japan and that we were welcome in their store. For decades, historically marginalized communities have been left out of our educational standards. It is far past time that they rectify past mistakes, ensure that all students see themselves and their cultures included in school curriculums, and give our kids a chance at knowing more. The fight is not over. The history of the United States includes the diverse tapestry of cultures and communities whose collective contributions have made Colorado what it is today and what it can be in the future.